Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, your chancellor of cheerfulness, your evangelist of the imagination, and, of course, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, Robert Meyer Burnett, me, and I am Robcasting it. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations, the show about something. Robservations episode number 645. The day has come. Ladies and gentlemen, kind souls, gentle beings, however you identify across these 28 known galaxies, the day has come. That's right. Tonight, the Snyder Cut. Zack Snyder's Justice League drops. I will, of course, they say it drops at midnight. Sometimes it starts earlier. I will say right afterwards, I'll be staying up tonight. I'll be staying up and I'll be watching it. And as soon as it's over, I'm going to go live. That might be 4 a.m. That might be 3 a.m. Pacific time. I will be doing it. I'll give you updates via Twitter or whatever. I'm going to stay up and give you my my thoughts right away, right afterwards. So join me. You know, I've talked a lot about the Snyder Cut, and I think all I wanted to cover has been said. Until I see it, I have nothing more to say. We have the Snyder Cut, and then at midnight tomorrow night, we have Falcon and Winter Soldier. My God, do we not live in wondrous times? Don't I always say that? And I'll tell you something. I was looking for something to talk about yesterday, and I came across, well, a couple of things about cancel culture. And as you know, I am a staunch free speech supporter. Found some interesting articles about cancel culture and free speech and Gen X, which is what I belong to, and I wanted to share it. I thought it'd be a good topic. It'll give us a respite from talking about the Snyder Cut. Not overtly political necessarily, but just some interesting observations. So, without further ado, I am going to jump into this. And the first thing that I want to read, as I find it here, it was an article. It was an article, and why is it that apparently, hold on, let me, here it is. It was an article called Cancel Culture is Out of Control, and Gen X is Our Only Hope. And this was actually published in the New York Post on March 13th. And it's kind of funny, and you need the visuals, which I wanted to show you. So, Matthew Hennessy wrote this, March 13th, 2021. First, it was Huck Finn. Then it was J.K. Rowling. Last week, it was The Muppet Show. This week, it's Dumbo. It's only a matter of time before Star Wars gets canceled, and you know it. Will Gen X, meaning me, please stand up? I have something I want to say to you, to us. We grew up in a country that didn't ban books. We all agreed that witch hunts and blacklists were bad. Censorship was an outrage. The 1980s were not that long ago. Don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about. So obviously, we've got a problem here. Everybody can see it. Everybody knows where it's heading. What we don't have yet is a group of people who are willing to do something about it. I nominate us. The generation that fought for its right to party should be leading the charge against these millennial Maoists terrorizing the culture via social media. Why aren't we? The reason is as obvious as it is unacceptable. We're terrified of getting canceled ourselves. The kid who stands up to the neighborhood bully may end up a hero, but he may take a humiliating beating first. Most of us are like that character in Raiders of the Lost Ark who saw the pit full of snakes and said to Indiana Jones, "Very dangerous, you go first." That character You mean Sala? And he says, asps. Very dangerous. You go first. If you're talking about Gen X, brah, and you're going to write an article in the esteemed New York Post, you don't say that character. You say John Rhys Davies, Sala. Just pointing out, if you want to make a case, just know your stuff. Tears for Fears was wrong when they said that everybody wants to rule the world. Only people between the ages of 23 and 33 want that kind of trouble. Once you reach 40, ruling the world sounds like too much work. People with jobs and families and mortgages want a quiet life. We want to find time to watch Nomadland, maybe save a little cash to redo the basement so you can put figures in a home theater in there. Here's the thing. The situation with millennials is getting way out of hand, and Gen Z. Probably some of them are like us and think ruining a person's life over a rumor that he once uttered a bad word is madness. But even the good ones are in too deep to see a way out. They don't have the guts to stand up. They've seen what happens to their friends who step out of line. Bad news, Bears. We're the adults here. We have to do it. If Gen Xers want to spare our own kids having to live in the new East Germany these woke maniacs are trying to build, we can't go on wearing our sunglasses at night. Oh, we have to do something, and we have to do it soon. Here's why it has to be us. The Gen X childhood was built around a simple premise. The U.S. wasn't a perfect country, but living here beats the pants off life behind the Iron Curtain. Whatever else is wrong with America, people don't lose their jobs because of their political views. We don't rat on our neighbors when they criticize the government. Nobody has to worry about a visit from the secret police when they say rude things about certain sacred cows. Liberals and conservatives have always had plenty to fight about, and the 1980s were no different. But this was something both sides actually agreed upon back then. Say your piece. Speak your mind. Agree to disagree. Here's Tipper Gore. In the 1980s, Tipper Gore launched a censorious crusade against popular music, and the youth was outraged. What happened to that country? Where did it go? Skewer a sacred cow these days, and you're likely to have your home address and phone number spilled out on the internet for every troll and troublemaker to play with. Voice an unpopular opinion, and you could be delisted, deplatformed, and maybe one day soon, defenestrated. We're living through an era of intelligence-insulting national debates. Does Mr. Potato Head erase the existence of trans teens? Do Dr. Seuss sneeches perpetuate systemic racism? Is it okay to let kids watch Gone with the Wind? What about The Mandalorian? Does saying there's two sides to every story make me a racist? You know the answers to these questions. We all do. It sure says a lot that we'd rather eat glass than have to answer them in public. Honestly, I think I know what happened. In a weird way, the existence of the Soviet Union was good for American democracy. We spent a lot of time comparing ourselves to the Ruskies, and the superiority of our way of life was obvious. Due process was better than show trials. Personal liberty was better than state tyranny. Free speech was better than censorship. Reckoning with history was better than erasing it. Twisted Sister was targeted by Gore as being too filthy, but the band declared, "We're not gonna take it." Rocky Balboa was better than Ivan Drago. I must break him. The evil empire component of the Cold War was perversely helpful. Several generations of American kids grew up knowing that we were the good guys. When we won the Cold War, we lost our enemies, so we looked around for a new enemy and decided that the enemy could be us. Kids stopped learning what Gen X and every previous generation learned in school. Free speech is good for everyone. Witch hunts and moral panics always end in terrible injustice. Blacklists are un-American. Instead, they started learning that speech could be violence and purges could be heroic. Victimhood is currency, and sending someone to the gulag makes you feel superior. I'm not saying that the 1980s were some kind of paradise. Tipper Gore launched a censorious crusade against popular music. On the list of filthy songs compiled by her Parents Music Resource Center was "We're Not Gonna Take It" by Twisted Sister and "She Bop" by Cyndi Lauper. Believe me when I tell you that every teenager in America was horrified. All the cool kids protested and jeered, not at Twisted Sister and Cyndi Lauper, as they might do today if the woke mob called for it, but at Mrs. Al Gore, who was obviously sticking her nose where it didn't belong. What's more, the artists who were targeted by the PMRC fought back, and just about everybody agreed they were right to do so. Dee Snider didn't apologize for having given offense and slink away like a pathetic, spineless slug. He waltzed into a Capitol Hill conference room, looked them straight in the eye, and in not so many words told them to back the fuck up. We could use some of that spirit around here, don't you think? Gen X needs to realize something. Nobody is going to ride to the rescue. Harrison Ford is not going to show up in the final act to save the day. No politician or celebrity is capable of turning back the woke millennial tide with a sharp tweet or a snappy speech. The cavalry is us. We are the ones who have to fight the cancel culture, rhetorically, of course. We will have to engage in 1,000 tiny battles every day, and it will be terribly uncomfortable. It'll be hard standing up to school administrators pushing an anti-racist curriculum on your kids. It'll take real courage to refuse to call yourself a bigot and to denounce people who raised you. If we can't find the guts to do this dirty job, the second half of our lives is going to look very different than the first half did. We will taste life in Siberia. Our children and our children's children will be forced to navigate a miserable, paranoid world of lies and deception. They'll be asked to spy on their parents. They'll denounce their friends. Don't let it happen. We're a generation with a certain set of skills. We can read a map. We can tell time on an analog clock. We can get along just fine without social media. And we know deep down that sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. The most important thing about us is that we remember how things used to be. How was not afraid to speak your mind. As the Shawshank Man said, you either get busy living or you get busy dying. So that was the article that appeared in the New York Post. And I don't know. I read that. I was like, okay, I kind of get it. I mean, I know what you're saying. I understand. Do I believe it, though? Do I want to believe it? Not really sure. But then there was an article that appeared in the Huffington Post that I would like to share that really cracked me up. And here it is. Fox News appeals to Gen X for help, and Gen X, meaning us, tells Fox News where to stick it. Fox News tried to enlist Generation X into its manufactured cancel culture war on Monday. Didn't go well. Over the weekend, author Matthew Hennessy wrote a column in the New York Post calling on Generation X to fight the cancel culture that has become a constant right-wing talking point, especially on Fox News. Senator Ted Cruz shared the link to the story, and naturally Fox News picked up on the cause with a direct appeal to Generation X. Here's Justin Baragona, Fox News correspondent Jillian Turner. Cancel culture is spreading like wildfire. There's a call for Generation X to lead the charge and save America from the social media mob. Can they do it? Many Gen Xers were quick to point out that the prime Fox News demographic today were the adults of the 1970s and 80s who attempted to restrict or ban everything from rap and heavy metal music to video games to Dungeons and Dragons. That, combined with the generation's proud indifference, led to a swift reply on social media suggesting that Gen X is sending the Fox News call straight to voicemail. Monique, who is openly black, says, Gen X is trending because Fox News think that we're the ones who can kill cancel culture. Laughs in a 2 Live Crew, NWA, and Sinead O'Connor, I would assume, way. Miriam Elder says, the Gen X discourse is here so lame. We do not want to be talked about. I hate myself for even writing this tweet. Leave us alone. Patton Oswalt chimed in, throw me the health care, I'll throw you the Mr. Potato Head. Brilliant. Mara, get rid of the Nazis, Wilson tweeted, if there's one thing Gen X loves, it's being told who they are and what they should do. Gary Dugan says, hilarious notion that Gen X would assist these scolds that told us what to watch, read, and listen. Blowing the cartridge, boomers. Oh, that's a video game reference for all of you. Mickey Kendall says, the war on drugs mostly took out Gen X. We were sacrificed on a few fronts. Oh, hang on. Those of us that made it, borderline feral, and some of the boomers circled back to demand we support them while we paid off college debt and raised kids. We're exhausted, and most of us won't live to retire. Brianna Wu says, this is my favorite because it's the Watchmen reference. Brianna Wu says, the gutters are full of blood, and when the drains finally fill, all the vermin will drown. All the white supremacists and sexual predators will look up and shout, save us, and Gen X will look down and whisper, no. Justin Baragona, Fox News correspondent Gillian Turner says, cancel culture is spreading like wildfire. There's a call for Gen X to lead the charge to save America from the social media mob. Can they do it? Seeking COVID funds for teachers, bonuses. Yeah, no. Angela says, boomers, Gen X can save us. Gen X, please tell the kids to stop canceling things. They're ruining your childhoods too. Gen X, no. Lauren House says, sorry, but Generation X grew up listening to our stepdads rail against political correctness while calling Sinead O'Connor a bitch and trying to ban rap music. So we're kind of over this shit. Jimmy D says, boomers asking Gen X to save them from cancellation. Nope. Book Jockey says, hi, Gen X here. I'm a little pissed at what Tipper Gore tried or did to my CD covers and how the religious right told parents to boycott blue jeans who supported the Boy Scouts for hiring gay leaders. For those of you who don't know, what Book is referring to is the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, had a parental advisory slapped on certain music CDs that was very obtrusive and ruined their covers. They actually did that in the 80s. They got it passed, and we had to live with it. Scott Johnson says, Gen X here never has a, quote, less understood the actual Gen X vibe. We literally can't be bothered. Will McAvoy says, Gen X is old enough to know that boomers created all that they now decry. Corey Richardson says, Fox News, Gen X needs to step in and stop cancel culture. Gen X, remember when y'all tried to cancel Bart Simpson and Murphy Brown, though? Clayton Cubitt says, as a Gen Xer who grew up poor under Reagan, I know the real cancel culture is conservative. I've seen them try to cancel food stamps, unions, Social Security, Medicare, heavy metal, hip-hop, Dungeons and Dragons, video games, and even French fries. True, by the way. Kiss my Gen X ass. Mike Dunford says, hi, boomers. During my latchkey teenage years, I listened to heavy metal, Madonna, and Sinead O'Connor. I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Please don't talk to me about cancel culture. Respectfully yours, Gen X. Stacy C. Inc. says, I don't know much, but I know Gen X does not care about this shit. Amanda Kurashi says, listen, Gen X was born canceled. No pity, motherfuckers. Elizabeth Spire says, as a Gen Xer, laugh out loud. No, I'm not going to save America from a fictional panic the right keeps peddling because they want to say bigoted things without consequence. So proud of my fellow Gen Xers. William Brett Hill says, gosh, I'd like to, but my brain is still too poisoned by all the heavy metal music and D&D devilry in the 80s to make anything I do be effective. Drew Edwards says, never do this, but Dungeons and Dragons, horror movies, Twisted Sister, the entire genre of rap, boomers tried to cancel a shit ton of stuff when I was a kid. Why, as a self-respecting Gen Xer, should I care about what you think about cancel culture? Anyway, this goes on and on and on. And I thought it funny now that I'm part of Gen X that I too have been called upon to stop cancel culture. But rather than join my fellow Gen Xers and say, you know what? tried to cancel us before. I think they're all right. I'm not going to go rescue people older than me. I remember I was there. People wanted to take away my horror novels. Comic books, it was the same thing. There's witch hunt after witch hunt. The difference is the people that wanted to take those things were older than me. Now they're younger than me. And that's kind of scary. So I was looking into this story. I'm thinking, okay, I get it. But what is it? How can I make this apply to movies, television, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror? How do I make this relevant? How can I talk about it to you members of the Post-Geek Singularity community? Then, lo and behold, I stumbled across a website that I had never been on before, a website called The Reprobate. And I'm like, The Reprobate? Somebody has a website called The Reprobate? And I'm like, okay. And then on March 14th, this website published an article called Reframing Hollywood, the Moral Superiority of Finding Everything Problematic. And I'm like, all right then, let's jump into this. What do they say on The Reprobate about this very thing? And I wondered, and I'm going to share it with you, what I found out. It doesn't say who wrote this, but March 14th, 2021, The Reprobate published this article, beginning with Anthony Hopkins as Norman Bates. Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates. I'm a douche. If there's one thing that is certain, it's that what was acceptable yesterday will not be acceptable today. Cultures change. Taboos evolve. Once upon a time, saying fuck on TV caused front page headlines and howls of outrage, while having a white character blacked up was seen as wholesome entertainment. Now the reverse is true. We're currently undergoing what feels like mass hysteria about the content of old movies, with few, if any, lines drawn between outrageous, slant-eyed, buck-toothed, crude Oriental caricatures and movies that might have the odd, tasteless joke or negative portrayal. Certainly there are films from the past that even we might take a deep breath while watching, but equally we're aware that many older works are either a product of their time or we're actually trying to make what we might call progressive points, just not in the way that is currently sanctioned. There's a movement right now, a movement with considerable power and influence that seems to want to remove the entire past, right up to the 2000s, declaring everything from Gone with the Wind to Friends as problematic. We're now seeing an unprecedented amount of material either pulled from circulation, edited, or plastered with warnings, regardless of the context that the offensive content appears in. Hence, Faulty Towers was pulled from BritBox before public outcry forced a rare reversal because of racist language. Yet the whole point of the words used was to show that the Major was a bigoted old duffer. Like Alf Garnett, also now removed from circulation, we're supposed to laugh at him, not with him. Of course, satirizing unpleasant ideas has always risked being approved by bigots who don't get the joke. Now it is condemned by liberals who also don't get it. This doesn't seem like a step forward somehow. It is perhaps with this in mind that Turner Classic Movies has programmed a season of movies under the banner Reframed, Classic Films in the Rearview Mirror. At first glance, this seems to be an admirable reversal of the cancellation process, accepting that older movies will often have content that might offend or upset the particularly delicate. It's perhaps similar to the now standard warning on Talking Pictures TV that the, quote, following program contains outdated attitudes, a disclaimer that ought to be unnecessary. Obviously, a film from the 1950s isn't usually going to score many woke points, but sadly is. The channel has enough complaints by the professionally offended to make it feel very cautious, I imagine. The reframed season, therefore, seems on the surface to be a chance to let people watch these films and make their own minds up. An acceptance that, yes, The past is a different country, but not one that we're not allowed to visit. That these films still have value despite their dated ideas. Unfortunately, that's not quite the case. If anything, Turner Classic Movies seems to want to have its cake and eat it too. Appalling to film fans appalled by cancel culture, and while then lecturing them on how to think and how to view the films. To quote the press release, several hosts will take turns hosting roundtable introductions before the start of each movie, where they will discuss the history and cultural context of the film. They will also provide trigger warnings about depictions of racism, sexism, and LGBTQ issues. The film listing helpfully tells us what we should find concerning in each film. Here it is. Gone with the Wind. Romanticized portrayal of the antebellum life before the Civil War and portrayal of slaves as happy and content. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Sexism controversy over the plot of the film of kidnapping women and forcibly confining them to marry. Rope. Portrayal of two queer characters who have just committed a murder. The Four Feathers. Racist views including the term fuzzy wuzzies to denote Arabs and a take on British imperialism in Arabia. Woman of the Year. Sexism and the idea that women can only be successful in the workplace if she lacks femininity. Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Aspects of black actor Sidney Poitier's films that are oriented primarily to white audiences. Gunga Din. White actor Sam Jaffe playing the title role of Gunga Din, who's an Indian character. Sinbad the Sailor. While white actor Douglas Fairbanks Jr. playing the Arab role of Sinbad and portraying Arabs. The jazz singer Al Jolson's blackface routine. The Searchers. White actor Henry Braden playing Native American character and the abuse of Native American women by a white character. Breakfast at Tiffany's. White actor Mickey Rooney's portrayal of Japanese character Mr. Yuniashi. Swing Time. Fred Astaire's blackface routine. Stagecoach. Portrayal of Native Americans and their being seen as a threat. Tarzan the Ape Man. Portrayal of Africans, including one attack by a tribe of aggressive dwarfs. My Fair Lady. Sexism and Henry Higgins' physical and psychological abuse of Elsa Doolittle. The Children's Hour. Portrayal of LGBTQ issues when two female teachers are accused of sinful sexual knowledge of each other. Psycho. Transgender identity and the implications of equating and dressing in women. There are a couple of things that strike me here. First is the whole idea that we, the general thicko public, need to have these films contextualized by people who are cleverer than us, lest we don't spot the dodgy representations. The whole argument has always been about more than people being offended. There's a sense of fretting over the wrong people seeing these films and not understanding why they're bad. Showing them with a serious finger wagging beforehand is an insult to the viewer. But it sums up the attitude of many who want to tell us what we can or cannot watch. Censors of all kinds are essentially patriarchal snobs who think they're smarter than the rest of us. The other thing that raised my eyebrows were some of the films. Now, many of the choices are obvious in why they would cause modern viewers, but with no sense of the past to have the heebie-jeebies. But others. I watched Psycho again recently, and let's say this right away. Norman Bates is not a transvestite. The film explicitly says so. At the end, when the psychiatrist is laying out the backstory, it's entirely unambiguous. Norman is a split personality who becomes his mother and so dresses as her. There is no trans aspect to him. To say otherwise suggests that someone simply hasn't watched the film properly. Maybe the long explanation at the end was a bit wordy, and so they started looking at their phone or something. Similarly, Rope does indeed have two men as the murderers, both played by secretly gay actors. But the film doesn't make any reference to their sexuality, as you might expect from a 50s film where homosexuality was something that no polite person spoke of. It certainly doesn't state that they've killed because they're gay. The TCM claims seem to be a stretch, possibly confusing the film with the stage play that it was based on or the real-life Leopold and Loeb murder case that inspired it. Most astonishing in this list is The Children's Hour, a daring 1961 film with Audrey Hepburn and Shirley MacLaine as two teachers accused of being lesbians by a malicious child. This is a film about witch hunts and repressed desire, and is a condemnation of a society that would demonize these two women because of their sexuality, imagined or otherwise. To somehow suggest that this is a homophobic movie is nonsense. It takes the bigotry of the time, be that 1961 or 1934 or the 1934 setting of the original play, and shows it for how vile it is. Yet here we are in 2021, and Turner Classic Movies is referring to lesbianism as sinful sexual knowledge. Problematic indeed. If we have to make a choice between these films being thrown onto the bonfire or having to listen to some condescending explanation of why we should be appalled before being allowed to watch them, then I'll take the latter, obviously. But we should be trusted to make our own decisions on these films and to see them as a historical record of a time long gone. To suggest that they are inherently dangerous if seen without warning is to become just another moralizing censor, wringing your hands at the thought of people being depraved and corrupted by films that, unlike you, they cannot possibly understand or contextualize, while somehow managing to miss the entire point of the film. So caught up are you in the need to find offense. I love this. I love this article. I love that on one hand, Gen X is being called on to save us all from cancel culture. Lots of people are going after Gen X or everybody. And then, of course, Gen X publicly says, nope, we're not going to help you because we're Gen X. And then you read this article where movies that are problematic have warnings put on them. And I think the thing that I wanted to talk about is exactly what this article said. By doing this, people are presupposing a moral, ethical, and cultural superiority over you. Putting warnings or labels on things. Oh, yes, it's for your own good. But as an adult, why is it for my own good? You're telling me somehow I can't see this, or I have to see this with a disclaimer, which immediately skewers your vision or your thoughts about whatever you're watching, because God knows it's problematic. So by even watching it, there's something wrong with you. I thought that this is a very important point to bring up. I mean, the real question is, are we adults? Are we not discerning human beings that can figure out what is and isn't problematic? As I have said, culture was evolving and bad ideas were being evolved out of the culture the way it should be. But now we have, we'll call them gatekeepers, or people that are making sure that you are staunchly following these ideological guidelines. And I think it's wrong. You know, the great thing about stories and movies, I mean, I think about the fact that Clockwork Orange, one of my favorite films, is ultimately uplifting to me, because at the end of the day, it's all about being an individual, that you choose to be yourself. And if that choice is taken away from you, we're lost as a society. Now, a lot of people would say, well, Rob, Clockwork Orange has very problematic violence and problematic depictions of rape in it. I'm like, yes, it does. But the film doesn't work as well unless you have those scenes that all plays together. You need to have them. And by the way, this is not me saying that. This is Stanley Kubrick saying that. It's a book adaptation, and he made that movie. And I would hold up Kubrick and say, that man knows what's up. Are you going to tell him that he can't have something in his movie? I wouldn't be the one to want to do that. Who judges that? So I think it's really wacky that we want to be getting rid of ideas. Now, to be honest, when I was reading these things, I found this website, The Reprobate, and I didn't know anything about it, but they do have a manifesto. And by the way, if you go to the Reprobate, it's the Reprobate. It's just Reprobate Press, REPROBATEPRESS.com, reprobatepress.com. That's it. You go there. But they actually had a manifesto. A manifesto that if I had written it would have been very similar, perhaps not as eloquent, but it is kind of the manifesto of the Burnettwork. And if you don't mind, I want to read some of this. This is the Reprobate's manifesto or mission statement, and it doesn't really say who wrote it, but I'll read it anyway. I won't read it all. In our 3 years and some months of existence, the Reprobate has offered a dizzying, some might say chaotic, selection of cultural delights, from outsider art to social commentary, from incredibly strange movies to incredibly strange lifestyles, from the defiantly weird to the populism of yesteryear. But one thing perhaps has united everything we've ever done, to a greater or lesser degree, and that's the overwhelming belief in the individual freedom, free speech, free expression, and free sex. Actually, sexual freedom, but it doesn't quite fit with the sloganeering. There used to be a given for liberals and libertarians alike. The forces devoted to shutting down expression and censoring thought were traditionally the establishment and the regressive. Things have changed in recent years, and it seems that self-professed liberals are now the cheerleaders of policing what we say, what we see, and what we do. And they are policing it with zeal and the inflexibility of a dictatorship. This might sound like exaggeration and hyperbole, but it really isn't. Let's not forget that social media accounts are increasingly being closed due to wrongthink, and in the UK, people are being prosecuted, convicted, and jailed for expressing wrong ideas, losing their jobs over what are clearly jokes, and are hounded by the online mob until they grovelingly apologize for causing offense, a greater crime than actual assault. As I write this, the police in South Wales are actually warning people not to mock the haircut of a drug dealer they're looking to arrest, lest they upset him and so break a law that the police don't seem to understand. It might seem ludicrous, but as we've said before, these warnings are destined to designed to shut people up, to stop anyone from straying out of line. Thought crime is no longer a dystopian myth, it's a reality. The belief that certain ideas are heretical and dangerous has spread everywhere. Even in the once sacred world of science, difficult ideas can no longer be debated or tested for fear that the conclusions reached might hurt someone's feelings. As it's easy to see this as the domain of a small but vocal group. But the fact is that the small group have disproportionate influence and power. The activists have the ears and the hearts of the broadcasters, the journalists, and the politicians. We only have to look at how the BBC and even allegedly conservative news outlets, like The Telegraph, for instance, fall into line with the latest terminology in woke culture. While some on the right have responded to this with a sudden and unexpected zeal for free speech, others, the more lunatic fringe, have become increasingly moralistic and fanatical. We're thinking of the unbalanced individuals in the conspiracy theory-driven ends of the internet who have a religious fervor and a new sense of nationalism and moral purity. These are the hardline conservatives of old, anti-abortion, anti-sex, and anti-anyone that looks or thinks slightly differently to them. The twitching paranoids who are driven by hate and fear. For these people, too, free speech is an anathema. They are the mirror image of their leftist counterparts, wanting to shut down any ideas they find distasteful or threatening. The end result of this is that the social justice mob of the internet are now finding that once you let the genie out of the bottle, there's no controlling it, and your own weapons can be used against you, either by your opponents, and the right seem to be all too happy to demand defensive comments be punished if they disagree with them, funny that, or by your own side, who, of course, will turn their witch hunts inward as their neo-religious zeal becomes ever more fervent. So this article goes on, but I loved it. I'd never been to the Reprobate before, and I was all about what they had to say. And it was pretty interesting. And I thought they were great. I really enjoyed them. So at the end, let me just say that the reprobate says, think of us as a refuge for freedom in the post-cultural, I think it's cultural, but it says cultural, apocalypse wasteland of the modern world. We're the outcasts, and damn it if we don't like that. Maybe you're an outcast too. If you are open-minded to new directions in art and culture, to debating ideas and opening your mind, and nothing is sacred, you'll find a home here, as a writer, an artist, or a reader. If you feel politically homeless, if you wonder why people who proclaim themselves to be victims often behave like oppressors, and if both the excesses and the minutiae of the culture wars leave you shaking your head and wondering just how the world ended up like this, well, then you'll find a family here. Like most families, it might be a touch dysfunctional sometimes, argumentative and occasionally embarrassing, but it'll never cast you out for saying the right thing with the right words, or the right thing with the wrong words, or the wrong thing with the right words, or for being the crazy grandparent in the corner who always says the unsayable things on a regular basis. In the words of Todd Browning's Freaks, a brilliant, transgressive, very problematic film that might just be our celluloid avatar, gobble gobble, we accept you, one of us, one of us, one of us. And remember, never apologize, never explain. And that, of course, was from The Reprobate. And I really like that. I really like what they're having to say there. And as I rail about cancel culture, what I find so strange, and this article quantified it, is that the people that are doing the canceling are putting themselves in a pedestal above you. That you seem to know less than they do. That their moral superiority is exactly what they need to explain to you how much better the world could be if you listened to them. And to me, it's the exact opposite of what I believe in. As you all know, I believe that this channel, and I believe that our world, should be open to listening to anyone's point of view. Every single person on this planet deserves to be heard. They have a story to tell that you have yet to hear. Whether you agree with it or not, if they say something problematic that you completely disagree with, that doesn't mean they shouldn't be allowed to say it, as offensive as it might be to people. I believe that humanity is smart enough to know that bad ideas are weeded out. I mean, sure, we might have to fight a world war to get rid of them, but ultimately, our culture, humanity, is evolving because I believe, and maybe it's because I am an optimist, that ultimately the ways of human life, sentience, the way that we're going to proceed is to be kinder, gentler people. Racism doesn't work. It's bad. Discriminating against someone because of their sexuality or whatever, I think is wrong, especially LGBTQ people. They're here. It's naturally occurring. To be gay or to be trans is a part of nature. It is part of the natural order. It is not something to be shunned or something to be tossed under the rug. It's something that we need to deal with. And really, it's not something we should deal with. It's something that should be par for the course. So we wouldn't have to deal with it because it just is. It just is. We have to learn these things. The best thing that we have is one another. Every single person is of value. Every single one. Like I've said before on this channel, the idea that we want to take certain people and throw them away, toss them away for their problematic views, so we're putting their problematic views above their soul, it's problematic. It's wrong. You know, one of the things, if I can bring it back home, it is now 4:28. So I am 7 hours and 32 minutes away. It was 7 hours and 32 minutes away since I get the love today. Zack Snyder's love, Warner Brothers love, AT&T's love, we get the Snyder Cut. I mean, if that's a great... I mean, look at that. Look at that as a metaphor. Isn't it better that we have things than to not have things? And if things are really problematic, they should be examined, and the culture will decide. It might take a while, but the culture will get rid of bad things. They will evolve out. They will evolve out. And I think that, like the article said in the Reprobate about movies, like, why do we now have movie channels that are playing movies that start by telling us those movies are bad? As if one aspect of, like, Gone with the Wind, one aspect of that movie, oh, well, there are certain slaves that are not having such a bad time. As if, like, is anybody, even people in concentration camps during World War II found moments of respite or joy. I have a friend who wrote a script about a concentration camp that was used by the Germans to prove to the world that, see, it's not so bad in here. And those, don't get me wrong, it was hideous. They were murder machines. They were the most industrialized murdering machines of people ever created. But within that milieu, at Brundabar, well, actually in the concentration camp where they put on Brundabar, they were still able to put on an opera, and people survived. The human spirit endured. And I just think that we need to remember that before we decide that books should be gone, or movies should be gone, or people should be gone, we should stop. Stop and consider, let's not get rid of people. Let's not run them out. Whatever hideous things they do, let's get them help. Let's do something. Let's show our compassion. I think that's important. And, you know, after talking about the Snyder Cut, by the way, can I just have an interlude for a moment? I want to thank everybody that took that clip of me yesterday when I was going off about how fucking metal this is going to be. I'm so excited. I can't believe it. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. It's being like in a rock show when the band hasn't come on stage yet, and you just hear like one droning guitar. Like, I can't wait. I can't wait. I am excited about seeing the Snyder Cut, and it's here. It's less than a work day away now. I'm going to be here, and I'm excited. And I think that ultimately, maybe it wasn't a free speech issue, but the idea that Zack Snyder was able to restore his version of his movie should give us all hope. You know, we can all look and go, you know what? Put both versions up. Let history decide. If it's a bad idea, bring it out into the open. Don't get rid of it. Let society judge it. Bring it out in the open, show it, discuss it, debate it. And if it's a bad idea, let society decide. Let it evolve into oblivion, as opposed to being jackbooted thugs stomping it into oblivion. That's all I want to say. That's what I want to talk about today. I thought it was really interesting coming across all of these things. Now let's see. What do you have to say? I don't know, but I'm going to jump into it, and I'm going to find out, because I have received a lot of letters. Yes, I have, and I just realized that What do we got today? Today, we have a St. Patrick's Day letter. Aaron Johnson wrote a letter. Dear Rob, happy St. Patrick's Day to you and the Post-Geek Singularity. I thought I would comment on a fun Tom Cruise Nicole Kidman movie from the 1990s, Far and Away, or as I like to say, you're a corker, Shannon, a corker. I will do this by quoting parts of the Siskel and Ebert review of the film, and while Ebert didn't seem to enjoy it as much as his co-reviewer Gene Siskel, I got a kick out of the film, mostly for its stunning Irish instrumental music, as well as the rather intriguing story it brings to the table between Cruise and Kidman. Because of the fact that Cruise's character, Joseph Donnelly, was tired of his family being picked on by the British that was invading Ireland, and wanted to explain to Nicole Kidman's character, Shannon Christie, that they could travel to America during a time when it was the gold rush. And let me tell you, Rob, I'm on Gene's side when it comes to praise for this film. I like the film, and I'm sure that a lot of other imagination connoisseurs who enjoy seeing Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman having fun in this film. Kidman is upset when she notices that agents of her wealthy father had tried to attack Joseph Donnelly's house. Surprisingly enough, Cruise's character, Joseph, shows up on the father's estate to try and talk to Shannon and talk some sense as to what was going on, despite the fact that her father's agents had caused a mess. But what happens is, without warning, Shannon pokes a rake in Joseph's leg, and when this happens, I was shocked by this. I was like, yikes, that did not need to happen. I think that given Joseph was concerned that Shannon's father's agents were penny-pinching Joseph's land clearly for their own personal gain and not for the needs of the Irish, this has been a concern. Her father's agents would have been told down eventually when Shannon does take a peek at Joseph as he recovers from his leg injury. He tends to be quite attracted to Shannon, and later the two go to America, and Joseph becomes a boxer. Later, the two witness the Oklahoma Gold Rush of 1893. The rest of the film is stunning, especially the really cute romance between Cruise and Kidman. I like the fact that these two characters managed to have a really convincing subplot. There were times in the film that I got laughs from the fighting in the film. It was okay. Both reviewers didn't seem to enjoy the fact that there was boxing and drinking as much as the next person, but they liked it overall. I think Far and Away is a really nice film that I found quite appealing. I would recommend that you see the Siskel and Ebert review of Far and Away. It's on YouTube. But my final decision is Far and Away is definitely worth a watch. So my question for all of you in the PGS, what's your favorite movie to watch for St. Patrick's Day? I would say The Departed. Sincerely, Aaron Johnson. In the name of the Father? My left foot? No, I'm just kidding. The Departed. No. Far and Away is as good a film as any. I liked Far and Away. I thought they were great in it. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I love the land grab scene. It's pretty epic. And it was shot in 70 millimeters, so it's a gorgeous looking film. So why not? Why not write it? Dean Mikatich writes in, Hi, Rob and the PGS. Why does the media label fans that do not like something as toxic fans? What is a toxic fan, for that matter? I've never met a fan that has claimed to be a toxic fan or shown anything that would be considered to be toxic except for Mark C. And as members of the PGS will know, Mark was anything but toxic. The media has claimed that toxic fans bullied Kelly Marie Tran and Daisy Ridley off Twitter. When they made those claims that did not publish one tweet of these so-called attacks, just made the claim. Now, that's not to say they did not get any personal attacks. I'm sure they did. But it would have been, well, one or two moronic people and not the masses the press makes out that there were. Both actresses have since come out and state that they did not leave social media due to toxic fans, but more to do with their own lives and what was happening inside the industry around them at the time. Yet, the press still choose to ignore these statements and blame toxic fans. Hell, I even read one interview with Kelly Marie Tran who stated in it that she did not leave because of toxic fans, and yet the author of the interview still put in that she left because of them. Why did the editor not catch this? So what is a toxic fan? Well, by going by all the articles the press puts out, a toxic fan is someone that dislikes everything and attacking everyone for it. But in reality, what fans are saying is that they dislike a movie, a TV show, character, politics, being placed into things that it doesn't belong, or for that matter, putting it in the wrong way. But how is that different to 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years ago? Not a single thing. Walk by any convention or listen to any fan discussion, and you will hear them speak passionately about something they like or dislike. But not once do you hear an attack on a person unless it's J.J. Abrams, Alex Kurtzman, and yes, Rob, and even Kathleen Kennedy. But those comments are not attacking them as people, but the way they have handled beloved franchises and how the wrong people begin to be working on or leading them. So what is different from then and now? Quite simply, it's social media. Before there was social media, as I said, the only place you would hear conversations on fandom was at conventions or just a group of friends talking. But with social media, people are now able to hit them and share their love and displeasure about a film, TV show, comic, etc. It is their opinion shared with more people than it could ever have been before. But for 99% of the time, they do not attack someone because of their gender or sexual preference. Though with anything, you'll always get the people that do. The media takes that small amount of people and claim all fans are like this. With the hashtag Release the Snyder Cut movement, the media are now claiming that this has set a bad precedent with toxic fans getting their way. How is this movement different to Star Trek fans doing a letter writing campaign to save Star Trek in the 60s? The Expanse fans bombarding Amazon Prime to pick it up when the Sci-Fi Channel canceled it. Nothing is different except the way fans have gone about it due to technological changes, and for the most part, they've been respectful in the way they've done it. Also, all of these fans groups have done a lot of work raising money for good causes. Is that something a toxic fan would do? Speaking of good causes, at the time of writing this letter on Wednesday the 17th, geeks and gamers who are considered to be toxic fans are doing a live charity stream today with all the money raised going to the American Foundation for Suicide. As I understand it, Zack Snyder himself has agreed to be on the stream. If they were toxic, why are they doing these charity events? Rob, even you have been part of one of these Star Wars. Rob, even you have been part of one on Star Wars Theory's channel. And that event raised tens of thousands of dollars that went straight to Star Wars Theory charity of choice. If geeks and gamers were toxic, why would Snyder go on such a channel? Rob, there's no such thing as toxic fans, just fans being fans. It's the Twitterati, a.k.a. the blue check marks, that are ones that are attacking everyone that does not agree with them and not the fans. While these blue check marks are also a minority, somehow they manage to get the studios and the press listening to them. As for that 1% of fandom that does attack people, they're just wankers being twats, and you find them in all walks of life, not just in fandoms. I love that. Wankers being twats. Only the British. The rest of fans could not be lumped in with them. Finally, the press needs to headline or sell, clickbait their stories, and just having a hardline 5 morons attack Kelly Marie Tran off social media is not going to do that, but toxic fans will. It's a shame that the normies don't know the truth, which is something the press should be doing. Just another reason why I personally have a hatred toward news reporters. From a fan that would be classified as toxic by Twitter and the press, but in reality is just passionate about the stuff I like and dislike. Peace and long life, Dean M. Well, Dean, thanks again for writing in. My whole thing is this. I would say that I wouldn't call fans toxic. I would call them less mature. I think there's a lot of people that they might not have the social graces that some have, and they get online and they speak what they want to say without a filter. And they can be toxic, and there's a lot of vitriol. There's a lot of hatred. There's a lot of horrible shit people say all the time. But I think you're right about the fan community. I think for the most part, the majority of fans are good people. I really do, because to be a fan of something is to be inherently optimistic in a certain way and to enjoy people. After all, what are these things that we're fans of? They're stories about people, all kinds of people. And as I said yesterday, and I might have been a little bit mistaken in how I put it, I never meant to say that there are not racist fucks that are in the world. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of racism. There is a lot of ridiculous prejudice. There's a lot of hatred. That exists. But I think in the fan community, I do not think that fans necessarily, and look, there are always people that are this way, but I think fans ultimately are actually very forgiving people. Even the hardest of the hardcore fans, if you give someone great characters and a great story, I think fans are predisposed more than anyone to embrace that story, whether it contains people of color or not. All they want is a great story. If you make a great character, it doesn't matter the race, the gender, or the sexuality of that character. If that character kicks ass, I think fans are going to be the first people to embrace it. even fans that might not, even racist fans, if you give somebody a character that they like that is perhaps somebody that they've been prejudiced against in the past, to me, that's why storytelling is so important. You can show people of all walks of life, every shape, size, color, and creed, and within a certain context, you can make people like those characters. And I think that's one of the first steps to take to combat racism. In my mind, the very biggest step to combat these kinds of prejudices we have is if people travel and go and interact with people that are different than they are, because you quickly realize that people are, for the most part, pretty great. All people, no matter where you go. It doesn't matter what country you're in. It doesn't even matter if you don't speak the language. In my experience over the last 50 plus years, people are pretty damn good. All they want is like what everybody wants, to be looked at, to be respected, to have somebody be interested in them. Show them some courtesy, show them some affection. That's all people really are after. So I think fans are after that too. And fans are more predisposed because they're consumers of stories. And I think fans, look, even though there are a lot of racist fucks in the world, fans are the first people, even if they're the most prejudicial fans in the world. If you give them a character, a person of color that might have been traditionally somebody they didn't like because of that, they'll still buy into that character if that character is well written and well performed. And that's, I think, the beginning of how you start to change people's minds. Great stories, great characters. It's the easiest way to people's hearts. Thanks for the letter, though, Dean. I appreciate it. Costas M. writes, Hi, Rob. This is my first time writing a letter to you, and I would be honored if you would read it on the live stream. And here it is. Here's a letter. Hi, Rob and company, and greetings from Greece. First of all, I'd like to ask in advance, please do forgive my banter. This is the first time that I write a letter to you and the PGS. I have so much to say, so my thoughts might be disjointed. Plus, there is the fact that English is not my first language, so I ask for your understanding. You have it. What prompted me to write this letter to you is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Full disclosure, I have yet not seen the movie, but I am eagerly awaiting for it. Dude, yes. Man of Steel is one of my favorite comic book movies. I think it's a great movie, although the product placement was a bit distracting. I remember going to my local movie theater, watching the movie with my friends, and living it. I loved the first part of the movie on Krypton. It was an epic look at Superman's home planet, and it set the tone of the movie perfectly. It was like saying to me, buckle up, son, you're in for one hell of a sci-fi ride. Everything about this movie felt so real. The reason Krypton was brought to the stage was how Clark was terrified of his powers at first, how Zod was so hell-bent to restore Krypton that he was willing to step on the bodies of all the people of Earth. But my favorite part about the movie is the relationship between Clark and his parents. I usually don't cry easily, but when Pa Kent sacrificed his life so that Clark would not expose his secret, I couldn't hold back the tears. I never had a great relationship with my parents, and when I watched this scene, I was really touched. I remember being amazed by the lengths that Pa Kent went through to keep Clark's secret just because he wasn't ready to reveal himself yet, and thinking, is this the love that most parents have for their children? If I was a parent, would I be willing to go to such lengths? So you can imagine my surprise after going out of the theater and hearing that my friends didn't like the movie. I was perplexed. I was asking myself, did we watch the same movie? How come our experiences are so drastically different? After that, I got back home and searched the internet to see what other people thought of this movie, and I was surprised again. It seemed to me that people kept comparing the movie with what they thought a Superman movie should be, not what Zack gave us. I remember reading the complaints and being so angry with their way of thinking. I mean, understand you want a different kind of a Superman who doesn't belong to this world, but my question was, didn't we already see that? If you want to see that Superman, you can see Christopher Reeve or even Brandon Routh. Why can't you accept that a different Superman can exist? And don't get me started on the people complaining about how many people died in Metropolis in the final act. First of all, I never saw any of you complain in any Marvel movie when the body count is also a whole city. I'm talking about you, Age of Ultron, or almost a whole race. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Thor Ragnarok. Did you forget about you? I love both Marvel and DC movies, but I can't seem to understand why people are okay with murder in the MCU just because there are some laughs that come with it. But let me continue with my rant a little bit more. Back to the invading Kryptonians in Man of Steel. A military organization of highly trained freaking super beings invades Earth with the sole purpose of destroying human life and rebuilding their planet on Earth. And you expect Superman to defeat them with no problem, without casualties, on his first day on the job, with no military training. And even when Superman finally defeats Kryptonians and he's forced to kill Zod because he has literally no other way to stop them from killing all humans on Earth. And then you still complain? Rob, please forgive me for using caps, but I am very sensitive on this particular subject. Eventually, after searching the internet for fellow appreciators of Man of Steel, I found the AMC channel Man of Steel review with John Campea, and it is through AMC and later Collider videos that I got to know about you through your appearance in Collider Heroes. When Batman v Superman was announced, I was ecstatic. Batman is my favorite comic book character, Man of Steel, one of my favorite comic book movies, and I was all in, and I literally counted the days to its opening weekend. The first trailer was so metal and epic. I still watch it sometimes. The "Do you bleed" line sends chills down my spine every time. I bought my tickets as far in advance as I could, and I was the first person in the theater. Unfortunately, I didn't love the movie as I did with Man of Steel. Don't get me wrong. I like parts of the movie. Ben Affleck became my favorite Batman, much to my surprise, since I originally didn't like the idea of him playing Batman. I loved every confrontation between Batman and Superman, and even liked Jesse Eisenberg's Luthor. And yes, I even got what Snyder was going for with the Martha scene. I mean, it was a bit silly, but you can see the look on Batman's face realizing that Superman has a mother. Despite his great powers, he's a human being in a sense, and being that he has a sense of belonging and love, and he's a frightened child that wants to save his mother just like he was in the past. And in Superman's eyes, he's the killer. I always thought a few seconds of his father calling his mother's name, like in the beginning of the movie, would greatly enhance the scene, but I always felt that there were parts of the movie missing. I remember watching the movie and thinking, well, this doesn't make any sense, that doesn't make any sense, or that's another thing that came out of the blue. I also hated the Doomsday character. Well, hate might be a strong word, but I remember thinking, why, Zach? Why? You gave us Batman v Superman and the master manipulator that is Lex Luthor. Just leave it there. Overall, I was disappointed in the movie, but it was an enjoyable experience. Later, this experience was greatly enhanced by the director's cut of the film, and then we went to Justice League. Justice League was my favorite cartoon growing up. I've been a Justice League fan as long as I remember. Well, Justice League and Shaman King, but that's a story for another day. I still remember where I was when I heard Zack Snyder left the project, of course. His reason was justified, and Warner Brothers selected Joss Whedon to complete the film. I remember being quite happy. I mean, that's the man who gave you the Avengers. What could be better? But then the reports surfaced that the executives at Warner Brothers refused to move back the release of Justice League to get their bonus money. When I read that report, I knew that the movie would have problems, but I couldn't imagine the number of problems. I mean, where do you want to begin? The bad CGI in Cavill's mustache, or Steppenwolf having literally no facial expressions the whole movie, the fact that somebody kidnapped, possibly cloned and killed Batman and replaced him with a completely different version? I could go on, but you get my point. I lost hope. Cavill is my favorite Superman and Affleck my favorite Batman, but after the movie I was sure I'd never again have the privilege to watch them on the big screen. But the fandom stood up and demanded the original Justice League again and again. After almost 3 years, it was announced Zack Snyder's Justice League would be made. And of course, if you have pointed out, there was a cut, but it was never a finished movie. I was excited and again counted the days to the movie's release. Today, before writing this email, I went online and saw, again, many people I follow on Twitter, not for their movie opinions, but for their opinions on other things, trash the Snyder Cut. So I followed many different threads and searched for reviews from various critics. I know a lot of people liked the film, but I want to focus on the ones that didn't for now. I read many of them calling it pointless, a complete waste of money that could be spent on other original films, calling people who enjoy Zack's vision about the DCEU edgy simpletons with low standards or intelligence, who prefer weird, depressing color, deaf action, and no substance. And I felt bad about humanity once again. I can't possibly understand what would make you speak like that about people who just enjoy different things from you. I get it. The Snyder DC EU is not for everyone, and it is, as you say, metal, yes. And I frickin' love it. I know that I shouldn't be discouraged or sad about people with different opinions trying to trash what I like, because that's just how the world is. But I can't help but wonder, why go out of your way to trash it? Why not enjoy the fact that the wishes of so many people that wanted to see Zack Snyder's Justice League were fulfilled? For me, this was the best thing that comes out of the Snyder Cut, seeing so many fans being vindicated for their effort to not give up on this movie. I can't imagine their satisfaction upon seeing the film, and even if I hated Zack Snyder's DCEU movies, I would be happy for those people. As I'm trying to gather my thoughts and bring closure to this very long letter, I just wanted to get these things off my chest, and in a place where I know that people who think like me exist. Because, you see, none of the people near me enjoy superhero movies, so the Post-Geek Singularity is like another family for me. Finally, I would like to personally thank you, Rob. Hearing your show helped me go through a very tough period in my life where I questioned a lot of my past decisions, and I dare say even my existence. But listening to your show, and for the cheerfulness every time you were talking to the camera without having being able to see the faces of your audience, was a constant light of hope. And I want to express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart. I hope that reading my letter brought you even a fraction of the enjoyment that I get every time I tune in to your show. Yours sincerely, Kostas. Well, Kostas, this was a fucking great letter, man. I thank you for writing in. First-time letter writer, yes! And you and I are going to watch the Snyder Cut, and we will bask in the awesomeness that is Snyder's metal version of the DCEU. You have a friend in me, sir, now and forever. How's that? Thanks for writing in, man. It really means a lot. It means a lot that you say that. I think that's what's really cool about the community here, is that it's accepting. You can say what you want. People will... Look, if you say something that might be questionable, people will give it back to you. They'll write letters. But for the most part, this community exists to be open, and at least we're at least mindful. We will reject bad ideas. I'll say that. But we will welcome you with open arms, and I can promise everybody will consider what you have to say. But as a first-time letter writer, I salute you, sir. A fine letter. And listen, I'm pretty stoked. Where are we at now? 4:56. 7 hours and 4 minutes till the Snyder Cut. What a great letter to read about that. Here comes a letter from Jerry Schmidt. Jerry Schmidt. Hi, Robert. I really appreciate your takes on everything happening with Zack Snyder's Justice League and what he was trying to build in terms of his universe. Yesterday, you brought up the two reviews that were diametrically opposed to one another, and I couldn't agree more with what you had to say. There is a deep-seated animosity towards Zack Snyder for some reason, and I just don't understand why. The hate is to the point that there are narratives that have been created around Zack's DC that even I, as a major Snyder Cut fanboy, have unknowingly bought into. One in particular, Zack's Superman doesn't smile. I believed it. Even after seeing Man of Steel several times and loving it every time, I still prepared myself for a non-smiling Superman as I began my marathon of Zack's DC films leading up to the big day, this Thursday. And as I watched Man of Steel this past Sunday, I was caught off guard by something. Good grief. This man smiles. A lot. I mean, not just a smirk here or there. He outright laughs in scenes. So here I am, years and several viewings later, reversing the narrative in my own head that had been pummeled into me by the tribe that relentlessly attacks Snyder and his work. That's also not to mention the jokes throughout the movie, lots of them. The movie even ends with a joke, made by who we now know to be the Martian Manhunter himself. Or the lack of hope criticism. I tried counting the number of times hope was used in Man of Steel, and I lost track again, but it was lots. I could go on, but the doesn't smile argument is what stood out to me while watching Man of Steel Sunday night. I'm not sure what movie the haters watched, but the Man of Steel I saw was just about as happy, hopeful, and positive as one could hope for in today's world. Thanks for all you do, Jerry. Well, Jerry, as you know, I have been a staunch supporter of Man of Steel. I've enjoyed it. I've put up with many slings and arrows from people who, well, they just, let's face it, didn't quite enjoy it as much as I did, but definitely something there, and I'm right there with you. I am right there with you. So thanks for writing in. And, again, I think you're right. This weird narrative about Man of Steel is strange to me because I'm like, what movie did you guys see? But be that as it may, I'm glad by watching the film, once again, proof's in the pudding. Just go watch whatever it is, read whatever it is before. Don't let anyone else tell you what you should or shouldn't think about something. Read it, find out, experience it for yourself, and you be the one that decides. This one comes from AJ Kelly. I think it's Kelly or Kel. Good evening, Rob of the Post-Geek Singularity. Here's hoping everything is well and good. As I continue to cross about the country for workish purposes, I sometimes feel like I'm missing out if I overlook a live stream. It is super hard to catch up on all the live streams when you're at the point where you know how a given airport is going to smell before you even step foot inside. That said, I've been doing my utmost to catch the uploads after the fact, as I really get a kick out of this show and I genuinely like the members I've encountered or whom I may converse. Aside from a couple of the weirder punk rock metal channels, in which I sometimes inhabit during my times of lurking in the darker corners of the internet, this is by far one of my favorite communities, and for that, I am grateful to you and the PGS. Currently, I'm preparing for yet another cross-country trip to play a St. Valentine's gig in Ohio, of all places, but I've been catching up on the show, and I couldn't help but notice your mention of compiling a devil-related playlist for episode 666. As the resident punk rocker metalhead around here, so far as I'm aware, I feel like I would be remiss if I did not chime in on this particular topic. And so, off the top of my head, here are a few essential devil or devil-adjacent songs that I feel must be included on the 666 playlist. Not all of the songs have the devil or Satan in the title, but I assure you, sir, the devil is quite mentioned, referenced, or the subject of these songs. So here are a few. By design, a number of these are rather off the beaten path, so please do with them what you will. I will refrain from including any tracks in which I am or was involved because, well, that's not my style. And if I'm being honest, I doubt any of the good people around here wish to be assaulted by the preposterous sounds which leak out of my brain from time to time. That being said, here's some cool devil music. Supercharger Heaven by White Zombie. Literally a 90s heavy metal song about driving a car that is possessed by the devil. The Only Time by 9 Inch Nails off Pretty Hate Machine. In this particular song, Trent Reznor recalls how he feels like the devil wants to fuck him in the back of his car. Take My Scars by Machine Head. The more things change. Helter Skelter by the Beatles. I guess we can award some extra credit if you want to listen to the Rob Zombie Marilyn Manson version from 2018. I'm not a huge fan of either one of those guys, but their 2018 Helter Skelter is pretty fucking heavy, so fair enough. Gimme by Alice Cooper off Brutal Planet. Death Valley 69 by Sonic Youth. Disciple, Slayer from God Hates Us. Even though Slayer has a ton of devil songs, this is by far my favorite and off the beaten path of the 80s as it came out in 2001, God Hates Us All title. Crossroad Blues by Robert Johnson. This is as old school as it gets. However, any red-blooded guitarist who has ever clicked on a distortion pedal owes a little bit to this song, whether they knew it or not. It's literally a song about selling your soul to the devil himself. It's just a 100-year-old song by a guy with a voice and an acoustic guitar. In my mind, this is about as metal as it gets. Descending Angel by the Misfits. This kind of speaks for itself, but it's a cool song from the Michael Graves era of the Misfits. It deserves a spot on the list, if anything does. Line of Blood by Ty Stone. This is a new school classic rock song that I believe appeared on the soundtrack for the sequel to Boondock Saints. Those Boondock movies may be preposterous, but this song fits squarely right in there. It's about being damned from the day you were born, and God bless or damn it. Here we go, Rob. Hopefully these are some additions to your devil music for episode 666. I tried to think outside the box a bit here, so hopefully these will serve their purpose as we all conjure old Lucifer on that day. Lastly, one final thing I wanted to bring up was Gabriel Byrne's emergence as the devil in Arnold Schwarzenegger's End of Days. The movie may be a little wobbly, but I've always felt as though Gabriel came through as a pretty good Satan. Live long and prosper, AJ Kelly, king of the Wicker people. Great letter. I love hearing from you, AJ. Great crop of songs. I'm down with that. Indeed. So, there's so many song selections. I love it. This comes from Pasty Coppertop. R&B, listening to a conversation a week or so ago with you and John about streaming services possibly moving to long-term contracts. I have a worry that once they get you into a contract, they can change their content. What I mean is that they have no real push to put new content on. What do they care? They'll have no advertisers to appease, and the viewers will have no recourse to cancel subscriptions if they're not seeing new content, at least not until the contract's up. For someone like me who still watches a lot of sports and have Hulu for that, I cannot have every streaming service. So I would have to pick a channel and hope they do a great job for a long time. Right now, I can get a service and watch for a month and then move on depending on what show is on at the time. I got HBO Max so I can watch the Snyder Cut and Godzilla vs. Kong, and then we'll probably drop it. Do you have any worries? The second issue I was thinking about is, why is movie fandom so angry and divisive? I've always been of the opinion that if you don't like something, then don't watch it, or don't listen to the music. Why spend so much time attacking the artist or the fans of that particular fandom? I don't get it. Critique the art, but don't attack the artist. I find it ironic that the folks who always complained about being bullied back in the day for being a nerd are the ones that are doing most of the bullying and are the most toxic now, which is sort of interesting. Keep up the great work, Kevin. Good letter, Kevin. Two things. You're asking two very different things. But yeah, I do believe that there is a possibility that streaming services will want to lock you in. I just lost my camera. I am looking at my camera just went out. Why is that? I wonder if I went back to, do I have this camera? Nope, I don't. Or maybe I do. Let me see. Hang on. The light that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Oh, okay. I'm gonna assume I'm looking at my I'm looking at my software. I literally watch my camera light go out. Yeah, this doesn't work. This isn't working for me. This camera seems to work, but I'm not getting the light. So, what I was gonna say is, this is so weird, so bizarre. You know, computers, they do hiccupy things. What can you say? So what I was gonna say is, look, if and where this is all coming from is, if these streaming services switch to some kind of a contract like your phone service, I don't think they're always going to be making content. I don't think they're going to suddenly slack off on the content. I think what a contract would allow them to do is stabilize more of. Oh wait, Elizabeth has written into me. Perhaps she is going to tell me as I. She says, we can hear you, but you're not moving. The overhead one's working, but there's a delay. Shoot. Damn it. Well, what I was going to say, if there's a delay, is there? Well, should I keep talking? What I was going to say is, I don't think they're going to stop making content. I don't think if you are locked into a year-long contract that you have to worry about getting less content. I think it's always going to be there. That said, you were asking about movie fandom. I think, you know where I think the real problem is I think that once you've been given something like Star Wars or Empire or Jedi, you wonder when people follow it up, even if it's George Lucas, you ask yourself, wait a minute, like, I was so excited about this. Why is this not good? I mean, you made 3 good movies. Like, we've got years of this. Why is J.J. Abrams' Star Trek so terrible? Why is Star Trek Discovery so terrible? Why are you not going back and, like, if you're going to make Star Trek, you've got 50 years or 45 years or whatever to look at what was good and what wasn't. Why can't you give us at least that? I think that's what people wonder. And when you're not giving them that, then people go, wait a minute. I mean, I'm giving you my time, or in the case of CBS All Access, I'm paying to see this. And you're giving me a substandard product. I mean, people can be like, you know, if you got like bad meat from your butcher at the grocery store, you go to that butcher and complain, like, what is this? What is this substandard meat? I think it's kind of the same thing. And people wonder, there's so much good material in the world. Why do you have to give me something that is not good? I think people don't understand it. Okay, I do not know what has happened with this stream, so I'm going to do the best I can to answer everyone's super chats and things that they've sent in before I go off. I guess I'm being run out of town. Maybe, although this is definitely a hardware issue, which I have to check into. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to start with what everybody was saying. Dakota sends in a tip and says, seeing as we now have TVs that can support 8K, they need to let everything else catch up before going any further, unless you have the equipment and other companies offer it. Even though you have an 8K TV, you're not going to be watching it in 8K. Dakota, I don't think that we're ever going to see movies go beyond 4K. Human beings can't even see in 8K. So but I agree with you. I don't see that we're going to ever get up to 8K. They're going to keep making TVs to give reasons to people to buy new TVs, but I don't see as there's any reason to buy an 8K television. I really don't. Willow is here. Willow says, I don't care much about the box office result, but I'm curious to know what your stance is on whether inflation should be taken into account when comparing films from different eras. Do you consider Gone with the Wind the highest grossing film of all time? I think it is. If you go to Box Office Mojo and you look into the box office of movies, they do take inflation into consideration. So I think you should. I think it's part of it. Also, it's not just it's also how many tickets were sold, because tickets used to be a lot cheaper. But ultimately, people like big round numbers. So, you know, main box office, as we go on a sliding scale, it all evens out in the end, really. But I definitely think we should. Dr. Alfred Bellows says, the idea of a cancel culture is inherently controversial. What one person might see as being canceled for controversial statements, another might see as being held accountable for offensive or harmful views. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's what I don't like. Being held accountable for offensive or harmful views. I'm with you there, but those are just opinions. And being held accountable means that someone is in moral authority. And I think, to me, the authority is society itself. The society will evolve. The society will decide. And yet there are a small contingent of people that have made themselves the moral arbiters of truth, justice, and the American way. And I'm like, who made you those people? What training do you have? When you call some view offensive or harmful, what are you basing that on? My problem is I don't believe anybody is necessarily qualified to make that assessment. And yet we have plenty of people in our society now who are willing to do just that. And that's what I find problematic. I find it very difficult to listen to half the people that put themselves on that level to be the arbiters of deciding what is and isn't harmful or offensive. That's my problem with it all. Dr. Alfred Bellows goes on to say, I think we should probably retire the phrase cancel culture at this point because it's losing its meaning when people just use it to mean, I resent your drawing attention to my crazy ideas and inappropriate behavior. Well, I think it's something we need to call it. I mean, we can't get rid of it if it doesn't have a name. And I think calling it cancel culture, and we all know what it is, people who want to cancel others, we see them doing it. They go after people on social media all the time. I think to me, what I like about cancel culture is the people that are going after other people, the people that are calling for the cancellation of other human beings. It allows me to know who they are, because in my mind, those are the dangerous people. The people that are carrying pitchforks and torches, they're the people I want to be aware of. I can deal with other people's ideologically wackadoo views, or if they say something offensive, let me deal with that in my own life. But when other people are going after somebody, those are the people I'm like, you, my friends, you're the people I can steer clear of. So in a way, cancel culture works in the reverse for me. The people that come canceling you, they're the ones I need to be wary of. So however you want to call it, yeah. So that's the way I feel about it. Devin Hilton said, Rob, thoughts on the passing of Yaphet Kotto? He was a brilliant actor, a principled conservative, and left a legacy of indelible roles. Any favorites? You know what? I love Yaphet Kotto, and I was a huge fan of his. There's a movie that I have not seen anyone mention that I have on Blu-ray. It is a police procedural from the mid-'70s called Report to the Commissioner. He's in that. It's a wild movie where an undercover cop, a female undercover cop, gets killed by another cop who didn't know she was an undercover cop. And Michael Moriarty plays that cop. It's got a really great cast, but Yaphet Kotto's in that. He's great. And no one's brought it up. Not a lot of people know the movie. Of course, I liked him as Mr. Big. I liked him in Live and Let Die. I loved him in Alien. Yeah, man. I want to eat something, but right now food will do. I love Yaphet. He's incredible. He was a great actor, a great screen presence. And yeah, again, he lived a good life. He left us with a great legacy. And as I tweeted out upon his passing, he finally got the bonus situation sorted out. But thanks for writing in, Devin. That's very nice of you to ask about him. Jason S. sends in a tip and says, I'd love it if the entire leading cast of The Mandalorian would tweet out the same thing Gina Carano did. We all know Disney wouldn't fire them and cancel the show, and it would be obvious that they are full of crap if they didn't then hire Gina Carano. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, we live in a weird situation where people are knee-jerk, and maybe she'll come back, maybe not. I don't know. I think people being fired for their point of view, it's not like they've done something wrong. They haven't committed a crime, to anybody. They've just espoused a point of view, and if somebody espouses a view and it's clumsily put, does that mean it's such a horrible thing? Is that a crime? Is that a firing offense? I don't know. And it was handled badly. It wasn't handled like through HR quietly. It was handled publicly. Gina Carano says she didn't know until she heard it on social media. Not a good look. Maximus says, bravo, New York Post. Rob, the New York Post is not some pointed-headed Wall Street Journal or the National Review. They don't need research or a historical perspective. They just speak from our collective existential fear of others. I know. I just thought it was hilarious. It was hilarious. All of that. That's why I read it. The New York Post, certainly not a bastion of news, but that article was just very funny. Save us, Gen X. I just kept thinking of Rorschach saying, no. Love it. Oh. Okay. So, Science and Reason Lover, who sent in a tip, has been watching my very favorite anime series of all time, which is Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I talk about it all the time. I've talked about it since the beginning of the show. Legends of the Galactic Heroes is a 110 episode series that deals with a long protracted war between two warring galactic empires. One is the Free Planets, and the other is it's basically an empire. And at the heart of the series is two characters, Reinhard von Lohengrin and Yang Wen-li. Yang Wen-li is they're both like in their mid-20s. They're military geniuses. And it details the war, and the two of them are at the forefront of this war. But basically, it's a gigantic, sprawling narrative about this conflict. There's 100 different characters, at least, and it looks at this conflict from every way, shape, and form you could possibly think of. It is an amazing, in-depth, very, very sophisticated series. And it's my favorite anime series of all time. It's based on a series of 10 Japanese science fiction novels. And Science and Reason has been watching it and was shocked by something that happens in the show, which I'm not going to tell you what it is because you shouldn't know it and don't look it up. Just watch it. Science and Reason says, just finished Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I just have one question. Can I get another 110 episodes of this show? It is absolutely wonderful. I think the subject of my first letter to you will be about this spectacular show. I'm so glad you love it because not many people I know have ever watched it, much less, like yourself, are watching the channel. It is an amazing, it's one of the best science fiction series ever made, bar none. And if someone said to me, Rob, here it's Netflix is calling, you can make anything you want, what would you make? I would do a live action adaptation of Legends of the Galactic Heroes. That would be the first thing that would come to my mind. Oh, would it be wildly ambitious? Yes. And even though the episodes are like a half an hour each, I would make them an hour long and just expand them. But it would still be 55 episodes, you know. It's a wildly ambitious schedule. It'd be tough to do, but it's the thing I would love to do the most. And yes, it has one of the most shocking mid-series moments ever. Just because you don't expect it. You can't see it coming because no TV show's ever done that before. But you say that you'd love more of it. Well, there is more of it. There is a prequel series about young Yang Wen-li and young Reinhard von Lohengrin. And it's not as good. It's problematic, but it does exist. I don't think it's 110 episodes, but it does exist. I have it, actually. So I have it on Blu-ray, my big Blu-ray box set. But I don't know where you can find it. But it is the prequel series. Maximus says, Rob, I need to counsel my high school film teacher. She/her had the nerve to frame or womansplain movies like Battleship Potemkin and Breakfast at Tiffany's for a bunch of students. How dare she? No one explained films before the 1980s. Well, Maximus, I would say you're ahead of the game if you're watching Breakfast at Tiffany's and Battleship Potemkin in high school. And I would say don't cancel your teacher. She/her is showing you the good stuff. So regardless of what she says, it's good that you get to see it. Cardinal Sin. Hey, Gil says, hey, Laser Bob. You know what they did to Laser Bob? I like the cut of your jib, sir. Here's some dough for wine. See what I did there? Gil, I see what you did there. Thank you for the wine. Thank you for the super chat. Jonathan Aldridge says, why does society see being white as being problematic? Well, I think, in the last couple hundred years of history, the Western Europeans, which are predominantly white, have done a lot of conquering around the world. That wasn't always the case. It depends how far back you go. But I think just, it's not like we've done... Look, I think our recent history, the last 200 years, it's problematic what we've done. But, you go back further, and then it's problematic for other people. It depends. How far back in world history do you want to go when people want to be problematic? For the last 300-400 years, white folks have been at the top of the pyramid. The atrocities that have been committed worldwide. Hey, that's not to say that, Cambodia, they did some pretty atrocious things there. But I'd say for the last 400 years, the white man's got to own it. We got to own it. So that's why it's problematic. The white patriarchy, whatever you want to call it. We don't have a really good track record. Once white folks made it to the top of the pyramid, it's not like we lived in utopia after that. So I think that's why people see it as being problematic. I've never thought that the way I was born is problematic at all. I've never seen anyone's skin color as being problematic. I see it more as a cultural thing or an ideological thing or a political thing or whatever. I don't think necessarily people's color should really matter. Anybody is capable of acting badly, just like anybody is capable of acting brilliantly, depending. Says, "Hi Rob, I emailed you a response regarding TCM, Turner Classic Movies. Thanks for the videos and the live streams." Well, thank you. I will look at that. I will look for that. Fortunato says, "Yo, Notorious R&B, are you going to go to the Snyder Cut charity stream? It's starting shortly, isn't it?" Yeah, I probably will. Why not? Tyler Maudlin. Oh, I hope you're not that Maudlin, Tyler. Tyler Maudlin says, "Earlier on the Hot Toys for Hot Boys, I asked you about Toy Fair. The conversation got sidetracked, so I'd figure I'd ask your thoughts here. It was a great old rag." Toy Fair and Wizard. Toy Fair was published by Wizard. I bought Toy Fair and Wizard every month. I loved Toy Fair. It was great news. Toy Fair was literally a digest magazine about toys, and you bought it. I bought it at the comic book store. I love Toy Fair and I love Wizard. I miss them both. I miss magazines. I'm a magazine junkie. I used to go spend ungodly sums of money on magazines. My bathroom used to have stacks of magazines this tall. I loved magazines. So I did love it. I'm glad you love it too. I quite enjoyed it. Jonathan Aldridge sends in a super chat and says, "I was at a Star Trek convention in Birmingham, UK, and was attacked for not liking Discovery. Diversity and inclusivity? I don't think so." Well, attacked. By the way, I appreciate you like Discovery, and I would have been polite, but in my mind, I would have been attacking you for liking Discovery. No, I'm just kidding. Look, people should be able to like what they like, and I think you should be able to have a conversation about these things with other fans, and I'm sorry that it didn't work out. I think that you should be able to talk about these things. Look, if someone, you shouldn't attack somebody because they like something you don't. You should have a conversation. Like, I would ask, well, what is it about Discovery that you like? And try and understand. Maybe I can understand why people like that show. And I think fans need to do better. They need to do better. Dakota says, "Bruce Lee is a legend gone too soon. Had he lived, we might got more movies with him and Chuck Norris." Yes, can you imagine? Just imagine an 80s action style movie starring Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris. Bruce Lee, gone too soon. Rest in peace. Yes, but Criterion released that great Bruce Lee box set last year. You know what? Now that you put that thought in my head, how great would it have been to have Bruce Lee in 80s movies? Kicking ass. Like later Jackie Chan. That would have been awesome. He would have developed it would have been so cool. I would love to have seen that. That would have been great. Brandon Shee sends in a tip and says, "Rob, I think it would be interesting to introduce a character similar to Colin Farrell's detective in Minority Report, an intelligent cynic who is a moral antagonist with verbal sparring as good as Avengers 1. I knew guys with none of that, with 10 of you." You know what? That's a great idea. Making a character, Colin Farrell's character in Minority Report rules. I would love to see a movie with a character like that. You know what, Brandon? Brendan, you should write that. There's your screenplay. That'd be a great TV series. I'd love to see that. Darth DJJD says, "I believe the Donner version of Superman and the Nolan version of Batman affected Zack Snyder's version of Superman and Batman. It did for me, but now I accept Snyder's vision." Oh, I think so. I think there's no way you can get around the fact that those visions of the characters are so indelible that everybody compares them to that. I 100%. I totally agree with you. William Lee says, thank you for bringing people together. So happy I found this group. R&B for president. Hashtag Post-Geek Singularity. Well, William Lee, I don't know if I'd want to be president. I'd like to be president of a studio. Maybe they should do that. But I very much appreciate the kind words. I'm glad you found your way to this community. And, it's going to be fun. We got to talk, tomorrow we're going to talk about the Snyder Cut and what I thought. And it's going to be very interesting. But then I'm sad because that'll pretty much be the last Snyder Cut stream. It's been fun. I've been feeding off the excitement. But I'm glad you found the group. Welcome. Welcome, Mr. Lee. You're always welcome here, sir. Jason S. goes on to say, one of the sickest things about cancel culture is if you say something scientifically true on social media, like trans women are men, your account will get shut down with them claiming it's hateful and threatening, demanding you delete it before you can get back on with the warning that your account will get deleted if you tell the truth again. The book burners aren't just burning books, but they're also burning down people's mailboxes too if they say something like book burners don't like. Yeah, okay. Jason, Mr. Politics, I know you're always trying to inject this politics in here, but I will grant you this, but I would say this. I would say the problem is there's a lot more going on there that you can say something that's scientifically accurate, but I would say this. I think the science is still out on certain things. And I think that's a very oversimplified view of the question at hand. For instance, we know that when people are in utero, when human beings are in utero, and they get exposed to an overabundance of whether it's testosterone or things like that, or estrogen or something, it changes what's happening. There's a lot that goes on in the development of the human animal inside the womb that we're not entirely, nor do we have the scientific data to analyze. And I think when it comes to, since you brought up trans, the idea of being trans, I think that, look, just throughout my life, there are people, and I've had a lot of friends in the LGBTQ community since I was young. It is apparent to me, spending a lot of time with people, LGBTQ people, that they are naturally born the way they are. It is a naturally occurring thing. Homosexuality is a naturally occurring thing. It is while I have the scientific evidence to say that? No. But as a person who's had many friends that are LGBTQ, I can tell you, since I was 13 years old, it was very apparent to me this is a naturally occurring state. And I can't explain. I have no scientific, but my observational skills tell me this. I think the same is probably true of trans people. I think people that are truly trans, naturally occurring state. We just haven't yet figured out how to quantify that scientifically, but we will. Eventually, it will be discovered. So, when you simply say, if you're just going to make it about biology and say, well, if you're born with these chromosomes, you're this, and if you're born with those chromosomes, you're that. Well, that's true, but that's missing the point. I mean, you're suddenly getting into things about identity and consciousness, and if, say, someone's when they were developing in the womb, someone's brain is their brain is different from their biology in terms of their physical biology, but their brain chemistry could be different. We don't yet have a way to quite to measure that. We don't. So there's a lot of things, there's a lot of variables in there that have to be taken into consideration. And I am willing to understand or believe, because I know this to be true, I know that my hypothesis, not as a scientist, but as a observer of human behavior for the better part of half century, for somebody that's met a lot of different kinds of people, I would say that the trans people that I know, it was a naturally occurring thing, that the horror is that they have to deal with it from a very young age, not understanding what's up. They're being asked to conform to gender roles and things that that and nobody knows because we don't have the science on it. There's no way to quantify it. Even I'm talking out of my ass right now, but I think that my own personal theory of the world is that these are naturally occurring things. And we need to start, I don't think we're capable necessarily of the scientific proof that we need, but eventually we'll get there. I think with AI and deep learning, we're going to have computers and things I would expect in the next 15, 20, 30 years that are going to fundamentally change how we view these kinds of things. And we'll have more data. And it won't be as easy as just that. But like you said, the problem is that we have a lot of people making statements that they also say that are factual, that are not allowing for the existence of other people that are clearly here. Like if somebody said, what if people in the Post-Geek Singularity, what if someone said, all the members of the Post-Geek Singularity are this way? Can you prove that would be untrue, whatever that is? I mean, the real question is, I like to err on the side of people. You know, give people the benefit of the doubt until they have shown you that they don't get that benefit of the doubt. And I think a lot of the time that doesn't happen. Maximus says, wrong again, Rob. Some things should be canceled. Some ideas are bad. The earth is not flat. Yeah, but that's not an idea that's provable. The sun does not revolve around the sun. Again, provable. Nazis are bad and they haven't given up yet. Well, they keep trying ever so cleverly. Yeah, they haven't been... Okay, but that's different. You're talking... The earth, that's a factual statement that's demonstrably provable to be untrue. The idea that Nazis are bad, they are, and those bad ideas should be fought. But again, we did. It was World War II. It was a global conflict, and we fought against that. The fact that people are idiots, I mean, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to round up those Nazis and put them in camps? It's tough. Maximus says, Rob, your words are very idealistic, but remember, some men aren't looking for anything logical like money or love or compromise. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn. Yes, and they should be combated. And they do, and we should. But, like, don't allow that battle to then spill over into everyone's lives. You know, I mean, how do you do that? My words are, I believe in fighting those people. I believe in fighting Nazis. I think that ideology is wrong, and fight them. But, you know, fight them in a way where you don't compromise the rest of the ideals of your civilization. That's the key. My friend Duroc Media is here. As a huge Godzilla fan, growing up since I was 4 in 1989, and watching the original, I've been waiting for Kong versus Godzilla? It's Godzilla versus Kong. Team Godzilla, yo. Anyway, I know what you're saying. I've been waiting for Godzilla versus Kong more than anything coming out. I can't wait. I love seeing your figures behind you, too. Oh, yes. I've got Godzilla and Space Godzilla and Minya standing between the two of them. Those are figure arts, SH figure arts. I am glad you noticed. Some people don't notice. I love my Godzilla. As a matter of fact, I saw that X Plus was coming out with a great Rodan. Rodan's my favorite kaiju movie of all, the original. Might have to drop the green on that. Would love it. But I'm glad I can't wait, dude. I really want to go to a theater. I want to go to Cinerama and see Godzilla vs. Kong, please. Oh, let's do my daily check with my ArcLight app and see if the ArcLight cinemas are open. It's been very bleak. Very bleak. Let's see. Wrong app. That's the wrong app, too. No movies found. Come on, ArcLight. AMC's open. Where you at? Where are you at? I can feel my hairs in my face. Jonathan Aldridge says, okay, never mind history, Rob. I'm asking today. Today, most white people 200 years ago had nothing. Well, I mean, most people had nothing 200 years ago. Certainly not compared to today. I mean, for most of human history, there has not been an equitable there's not been an equitable sharing of wealth. So I could say that. But, you know, what we have to stop doing is talking about white people. How about people? How about people on the planet Earth? You know, white people, everybody had nothing. I mean, hell, people in places on this planet today have nothing. Still have nothing. White people, kind of at the top of the pyramid right now. I mean, we're doing all right. So then again, our Chinese people are doing all right. Indian people. India, look at how many people, but how many people in India are in poverty? I mean, if you think about it, most of the world collectively, I don't know how good we're all doing, but yeah, I think that I don't know what you're asking about, but I mean, the fact is, we have a pretty piss poor record of treating one another well, especially like if you really want to go back. And I'm a culturalist, but we came and we stole indigenous people's lands, we wantonly murdered them, and we enslaved people. We brought them from their native lands to the United States and enslaved them for 400 years and treated them quite horribly. And by the way, that horrible treatment's going on even today. So I you know, it all depends. It depends where you're at. Jonathan says, but Rob, it doesn't matter because all people can think of is to be white is not acceptable. Who is being racist now, Rob? Well, I wouldn't even say it has to do with racism. I think, look, it's not as easy as that. You can't start the thinking that we have going on about color and race and all that. We are one race of people. We have different ethnicities, but we have one race of people. Until we start thinking of our planet as being filled with one race of people, we're never going to move forward. And I know that might be Mr. Kumbaya. That's me going, hey. But I really believe that. I mean, we have to start thinking of ourselves. As a matter of fact, it's not just people either. We need to start thinking about our planet from a global perspective. I know it's hard, but we have to stop thinking about people as different colors. We're all denizens of the planet Earth. We all drink water. The water that's been on this planet, it's not like a bunch of waters come into this planet from space anytime soon. Well, maybe on a ice asteroid or something. But for the most part, we're drinking the same water that's been on this planet for billions of years. And the people that are here, we've got to start thinking about this planet from a global perspective. We have to stop thinking racially or whatever, ethnically. We have to start thinking about our planet as one whole biosphere. And all the people here, depending where they live is different, cultures can be different and all that, but we have one race of people on this planet, one, the human race. And we need to start thinking about our future. And what are we going to do to protect it? So, yes, that's what I think should happen. August Ragon says, Rob, 2 seasons of Legends. Oh, see. Okay, here's the thing. Rob, 2 seasons of Legends of the Galactic Heroes. I knew these. This is the remake. This is the remake. I watched the first season. It's okay. It's not the original series. So that, don't watch the original. Go back and watch. I mean, don't watch. Of course, what am I saying? Don't watch the remake. Don't watch I Knew These. Watch the original version. Yeah. But that's, you know, if that's your first experience with it, I can't say no. Julius Goodwin, our sommelier. By the way, we did get that new wine from Nicole Scherzinger. That was good. Elizabeth gave, she has a bottle of that. I liked it. I thought it was good wine, man. I thought that Nicole Scherzinger. It was a red blend. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Jonathan Aldridge says, today's attitude of being problematic is what creates racism because it creates fear. Also, Rob, I meant to say that I was attacked at a Star Trek convention in Birmingham for disliking Discovery. Oh no, I got that. Um, I don't. Look. I think what creates racism. It's not so much fears. It's more about. It's about justice more than anything else. I mean, there has not been exactly racial justice in the world. Look what happened yesterday in Atlanta. I mean, how can anyone look at that? By the way, that had nothing to do with that. That was, you had a 21-year-old fuckhead going to 3 different Asian massage parlors and killing 8 people. Now, that was a white kid. You know, a white kid with guns. How many white kids with guns? Who should we be fearful of? I mean, it wasn't a black kid. It wasn't an Asian kid. It wasn't an Indian kid. It was a white kid. A white kid. How many white kids have to pick up guns that are in their late teens and early 20s? I'm scared of white people. I don't see. Yes, there was the one Asian guy that went to the college campus, but for the most part, young white men, scary motherfuckers. So what do you say about that? I mean, what do we say? What are we going to do? I mean, I think we should put all young white men from 18 to 21 in camps. All of them. Because you can't trust anybody. Because the way they're socialized. I mean, certainly our gun statistics might point to that. But is that what we're going to do? No, we're not. But that's some scary shit. 8 people are dead. And you have to ask yourselves, why did that happen? I don't know. Jonathan Aldridge says, what about these African dictators that eliminated their own people? What about Stalin? Doesn't get much more whiter than Russians. I guess if you're talking about people that came in from Mongolia. But, I mean, what are you saying? I mean, what people didn't murder their own people? Look at all of human history. Every single group of people has done well killing their own people or killing other people. Like, I don't know what your point is here. I don't know what you want me to say. African dictators that eliminated their own people. African people sold other Africans into slavery. To this day, Africans are praying the Tutsi and the Hutu. But that's true around the world. Look at the Balkan conflict. Look what happened in Yugoslavia. I mean, human beings suck. And I think if there's one thing I can tell you, it's human beings are equal opportunity oppressors and murderers. All of us. If you look at our history, human beings are terrible, terrible, horrible people. And I'm one of them. We have to do better. All of human history does not bode well for our future. But, I believe in the future. I'm a futurist. We'll do better. I hope. Alex Sarah says, I discovered I'm bisexual in quarantine. For fun, Rob, I felt Alita Battle Angel was a pro-trans film. If so, I applaud the team for it. Queer theory film for you? That's interesting. I mean, I don't know if Alita was a pro-trans film. I can't really speak to that. But I liked it. I mean, look, I appreciate gender bending, and I think also that I think Alita, if anything else, is a transhuman film. I think when people with that kind of technology are no longer tied, if you can change your body parts and you can swap things out for technology, I think human beings will. And I think that the definitions that we've all had to live under once we are unmoored from just our biology, things are going to get wacky. Queer theory in film, I don't know if you mean that in general. Look, I find gender and sexuality very, very interesting. To me, human sexuality is also unmoored from biological reproduction. And it has a lot to do with creativity and artistry and all of those things. But we'll eventually get there. We're a little, America especially is a little puritanical. I mean, we are. We always have been. But congratulations for discovering something new about yourself, and I hope what you discovered makes it a lot more fun. As Black Phillip says in The Witch, live deliciously, and it sounds like you have a little bit more that you can delve into in your smorgasbord of life. So congratulations for that. Report back. I'll be curious to see what that journey is like. Maximus says, last Snyder Cut stream, are you delusional? Did you forget the last 10 years? Fandom in the industry will be debating this film for the next 5 years. Chances are Darkseid will send you a super chat tomorrow complaining he didn't have a large enough role. Maximus, you are damn right about that. Aren't you right about that? Yes, you're right. But, man, I don't know if I can find... another stream. Can I really talk about this for another stream or two? But now that we've seen it, so maybe I can do 5 more streams about what it'll mean after we've seen it. Cardinal Sin. Gil goes on to say, R&B, you are wise and correct. You speak the truth. Well, I don't know if I speak the truth. I speak a truth. I speak my truth. Jonathan Aldridge says, Rob is officially now one species, not one race. I would love to help, but I will not support society if all I'm made to feel is guilty. Well, Jonathan, wait a second. Why are you being made to feel guilty? By whom? Who's making you feel guilty? I don't feel guilty. I don't feel guilty being a white man, a white adopted man. There's nothing for me to feel guilty about other than the stuff that I've done in my own life. Plus, being a Jew is great because every year you have Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Atonement, where you have to go before God and say, God, I fucked up. This is what I've done. You're not absolved of it either. You just have to recognize before God that you've done these big things. Who's making you feel guilty? And the fact of the matter is, white men have done horrible things, just like every other human being on this planet. Every single, and remember, it's one race. It is one race. It's different ethnicities, but it is, we are one species with different ethnicities we have different external and internal differences based on where we are from on the planet that were controlled by environmental conditions, but we are one species with different ethnicities. And yes, the one race, we're one race, if you want to call it that. We're the human race. There's no other race. There's one species, one race with different ethnicities. And I think that's important to remember. And remember, the only differences between races are derived from our origins on the planet. Literally based on environmental conditions. Where we were habiting. So that's, that you got to remember that. You got to remember that. Be mad about culture. That's where you can get mad. You can have me at culture. Let's get mad about culture. Jonathan goes on to say, Rob, in my hometown of Reading, UK, 2 white guys were killed in Forbury Gardens. White men killed by knives. Okay, well, 2 people were killed by... I don't understand. In Pasadena, where I live, 2 white dudes were killed. Let's find out. As a matter of fact, let's find. I mean, I can't look up the statistics, but are you telling me that they were killed by somebody that was? I mean, if you want to go back and you want to look at the murder statistics in the United States are white people are mostly killing white people, and then white people are also killing people of color. And people of color are killing people of color. Who's not killing whom? Where do you draw the line? I mean, you want to start looking at global statistics based on where people live? I mean, it's a crazy thing. People shouldn't be killing people in general. It doesn't matter what color you are. What would really help is let's get people out of poverty. Let's raise people out of poverty. Let's get people educated. All people. Let's make sure people have families to fall back on. I mean, it's not a color issue. It's a class and it's a culture issue. And the thing is, we need to spend more time educating people, getting people risen up out of poverty. allowing people to dream so they can fulfill what they dream about. Give them opportunity. You know, you'll save a lot more people if you give people great education and show them that they can pursue what they want to pursue in life. All people. So, well, yes, Jonathan Aldridge says, my point is that you can't just blame those that are white for murdering others when people of all ethnicities do it. It's true. But is anyone blaming whites for murdering people? I mean, certainly we've done an inordinate amount of it in the last 300 years, especially in the West. And by the way, white people have done a good job murdering everybody. Murdering other white people and every other ethnicity that came along. You name it, we've killed people. So, I mean, and come to grips with that. I don't know on this channel. I do not have enough information to tell you, to give you a good answer. You want to ask me about the Snyder Cut? I can say that, but all I can say is, look, I'm a fan of the future. I think that all of us, humanity has been horrible. That my position is humanity is a terrible bunch of folks. We've done horrible things to everybody, and we continue to do so. And I think if we start thinking that if we start thinking globally, and we start understanding that our biosphere is look, we're all breathing the same air and drinking the same water. We're all the same kind of people. And if you travel around the world, you will find that there's a lot of great people wherever you go, of all shapes, sizes, colors, creeds. Good people. This planet is full of great people. More great people than bad people. We just hear too much about the bad people. But, you know, as someone who's been around the world, let me tell you, I have had the worst experience I ever had in my life traveling around the world was in Australia when I was mugged by 4 white dudes. And they beat the shit out of me. 4 of them. Luckily, I was able to get up. I mean, my nose is still crooked from when it was broken. I still have a scar above my eyebrow. And, yeah, that was the worst thing that ever happened. 4 young white dudes, when the footy was over at 3 o'clock in the morning when I was walking home, talking to my then wife, 4 guys jumped me and beat the shit out of me. They did not get my wallet, and I was able to stand my ground, but I was messed up. I had 3 cracked ribs. Not cool. Am I mad about that? No. Did I hate all Australians? No. I love Australians, as a matter of fact. I just did a stream with Justin Kane, one of my favorite Australians. But you can't. Got to move forward, man. Don't look back. Jonathan Aldridge goes on to say, also for stealing land, that crime is not unique to America. I'm afraid Israel is just as guilty, depending on whose perspective you look at. What land did they steal? How far back? There was no Palestine. Anyway, I certainly am not going to get into right of return or two-state solution or any of that. I mean, I will not. But lots of people are guilty of a lot of things. So there's plenty of it to go around. The question is, rather than look back and point, and what are we going to do to go forward? How are we going to change it? How are we going to change it? What are we going to do to make the world a better place? On a daily basis. What are we going to do? What are you going to do? What am I going to do? What are we all going to do? That's the question. Forget the past. There's no more past. It happened yesterday. What's going to happen tomorrow? What are we going to do? How are we going to make the world a better place moving forward? That's the question we should always ask ourselves. And you know what else I found? What someone else, like I've said it before, half the time we're thinking about things that we have no control over with people that we're never going to see. All we should do is concentrate on what is in front of us and what is around us, who is around us, and what can we affect? What kind of change can we affect? Can I be worried about what's happening overseas? I can't. I need to be worried about what's happening in my neighborhood, what can I do to affect change? In my case, I guess I have a worldwide platform, but what are we going to do tomorrow? Rather than look back and go, this person did this and that person did that and whatever, forget all that. It happened already. What are you going to do tomorrow? How are we going to make it better? What happened in the past doesn't even matter. It's gone. It's in the past. Yes, I'm running out of time. Andrew Christie says, Rob, shouldn't you be watching Man of Steel and Batman v Superman Ultimate now? Yes, because, wait a minute. Yes, I should. As a matter of fact, it's 6. It's freaking 6. I got to get off this channel. Even I had technical difficulties, and I'm still on. I'm not going to make it. Claudia says, Rob, stop listening to Maximus. He's an angry lunatic. He's quoting The Dark Knight 2. Oh, The Dark Knight. 2, I think Maximus is an apostle of Thanos. He is. Maximus is a bad man. Although he might be Maximus Decimus Meridius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and he will have his vengeance in this life or the next, so maybe I should listen to Maximus. I mean, I read his letters. Jonathan Aldridge goes on and says, Einstein was white and Jewish and he was great. Stephen Hawking's another one. But there's lots of people white. Who cares what color they were? What difference does it make? So they descended from whatever stock they descended from. Hell, the real question is, do you have Neanderthal DNA? Because that affects whether you get COVID or not. Have you looked into that? You know? I mean, the thing about race, look, man, I'm not down. Different ethnicities. We are one people with different ethnicities. And, 23andMe, check it out. We all are, we're all one group of people. Let me tell you, the Independence Day aliens, there's a lot to learn from War of the Worlds and Independence Day. Did they care what color we were? No, they just wanted the damn planet. Do you think that if aliens came to invade us, they're going to be like, you know what, we're only going to go after countries with these kind of people? No, they're going to kill us all. They don't care what we look like. The aliens are coming. The aliens in V, they're going to come take our water and steal our people and eat them. They don't care. They don't care what color we are. All they care about is that we're tasty and then can they have our water. We need to start thinking that way. We need to start thinking collectively. I mean, what is the lesson of Independence Day? That all of our differences, we had to come together to fight those aliens. Come together around the world. Even the Israelis and the Arabs hooked it up, and they fought together. A good point there. Maximus says, now you're talking about the biosphere. Sweet Christmas. You and Claudius want to eat goat cheese and sell us all Priuses. Rob, don't live on the left coast. I live in America. Well, Maximus, I'm telling you, I think we all live in America. Jonathan Aldridge says that the Palestinians claim that their land was stolen from them during the 1947 Balfour Declaration. Oh, it starts a lot sooner than that. Got to go back even further in the 20th century. Go back a little earlier. But there was no Palestine. There was no land. There was no national borders. There was no recognized place called that. But I won't get into that. I won't get into that. We could, but that's not what this channel's about. Although I could definitely get into it, but I won't. But listen, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, Cardinal Sin says, be excellent to each other. George Carlin. Okay, Jonathan, first of all, I want to thank you, though, for sending in Super Chat, supporting the channel, and having these discussions. I just don't think, personally, I am not a political theorist, so I don't know enough about all this stuff. I know that my perspective has taught me on this planet, and the amount of travel, the people I've met, I will say this. I know for a fact that we all, doesn't matter what color we are, it doesn't matter what our sexuality is, doesn't matter, we have far more in common with one another than we have that are different. And we need to start thinking that way as we move into the future. And this is not some kumbaya, Maximus, goat cheese, Prius driving bullshit. We're all human beings. We all inhabit the same planet. And we have to start thinking of ourselves as being part of a global community, and that our planet has to be preserved. And we, as the human race, the one race that inhabits this planet, we must, I'll tell you something. There's a David Gerald, who wrote The Trouble with Tribbles, wrote a series of science fiction novels called The War Against the Tor. And it's only 4 books. He's been writing the 5th book for like 30 years, literally. And it is about an alien ecosystem that has somehow, we don't know where it came from, but in the book, an alien ecosystem that starts on the equatorial level and is spreading out, that's literally terraforming the Earth well, not terraforming, but whatever, terraforming the earth underneath our feet. The books are great. These 4 books are great. But in the book, they talk about how the first wave of this, there was massive plagues. Humanity was killed off by diseases that we didn't have any defense against. And that was part of the wave of this biosphere. And our biosphere is being taken away from us. The threat is global. And all of us, humanity, is the way we're being treated by this alien ecosystem, sees us. It doesn't see us, but there's no intelligence behind it, but is treating us like we are one group of people, one race. And it's killing us off accordingly. And what happens in this book is we have to figure out, we have to literally, they have this, what they call mode training, where human beings have to change their modes of thinking. All of the programming and the way we've lived our lives since we grew up, our modes have to be changed. Otherwise, we're going to die out. And so there's literally classes where people slough off their old prejudices, their old ways of doing things, their old ways of thinking, and have to think about themselves, their lives, the planet differently. And I sometimes feel we all should read that book. By the way, those 4 books are great. A Matter for Men, A Day for Damnation, A Rage for Revenge, and I want to say A Method for Madness? Or is that the one that's not published? They're great. And the situation gets more and more dire. But reading that book, what I loved about it was this is a global catastrophe. And every human being is in it. And we have to start thinking that way because we're there, man. We are in a slow-moving global catastrophe right now as a result of our industrial age. And we have to start, clean the ocean plastics up. These are things we have to do. And we have to start thinking those Jonathan Aldridge goes on to say, we also live in countries. Do we preserve them as well? Well, I think we should preserve them because different regions need different things. And, we eventually, probably not, but that might take hundreds of years to get rid of that. But countries, governments, it really depends. People that live in certain areas, there's different areas of the world. I don't think right now it would be very productive to eliminate all national borders because I think sometimes our cultures are valuable. And it's a gradual thing. Why get rid of all borders? Look at, I can't even buy something from Amazon UK. You think I want the borders to fall all around the country or all around the world? No. No. Luckily, I've got the lovely Emma Bannon who will get me stuff in the UK. Or I can have things shipped to or Dieter Bastian can get me things from other countries. I think we, I just want, why can't we just all get along? Why do we have to have Brexit? Why can I not buy things from Amazon UK anymore and get them when I want them? Anyway, all right. I'm already behind. I'm going to watch Batman v Superman. I'm going to watch Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. I am going to go watch the Snyder Cut. Thank you for bearing with me. I want to thank everybody for their generous support of this channel. And I will try not to, I cannot, as much as I might want to, I just don't know the answers for all of these political problems around the world. All I can say is I think most human beings are worth preserving. And we live on a pretty great planet. And we need to preserve both. We need to preserve the human race, and we need the one race that's on this planet. We need to preserve our biosphere because there ain't a lot like it, and there certainly ain't any more in the galaxy. In the solar system. We who are spinning around the soul star, our star soul, we're lucky to be where we are. The alternatives suck. Maybe Europa, but we don't know that yet. But saying here, we need to preserve it, and we need to preserve each other. We're here for a short period of time, and I think that's important. But on that note, I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. I don't even know if my thank you to my moderators. I can't imagine what it was like to be a moderator. As a matter of fact, I want to go back in time, and I want to be a moderator during this chat and have somebody else be me so I can watch what it's like. I want to thank Mike Bodden. I want to thank the Richard. I want to thank Joshua Levesque. I want to thank Louise X. Sparrow. Darren Seeley. Greg Smith is here. Who else? Robert Pariso is here. Let's see. Who else is here? I don't know. I think I got everybody. I want to thank you all for being the greatest moderating staff on YouTube. I want to thank everybody in these chats for being one of the best audiences, if not the best audience on the best community on YouTube. Thanks for bearing with me while apparently my camera just stopped. And I want to thank, all the people that wrote letters. I have a lot more letters. If I didn't get to your letters, I am sorry. I want to thank everybody for generously supporting the channel via tips and super chats. Please hit subscribe and like and all that. I can't wait to read the comments section on this. I want to give a special shout out to Claudius and Maximus for being my favorite split personality, the Tyler Durden and narrator of this channel. I hope he gets the help he needs. But it's great to have you. I want to thank Jonathan Aldridge for sending in some compelling questions. I wish I knew more about politics and the state of the world, but I only know about movies and TV and Star Trek and action figures. But thank you, and thank everybody else for writing in. It's been an interesting day. Now, if you will excuse me, I am going to get ready to watch the Snyder Cut. You know why? And I'm telling you, as you all know, because it's fucking metal. We're going to get fucking jerked. It's going to be awesome. And we're all going to go together. Let's do it. Let's go and see. Yes. And on that note, I say, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, I say, let's go fucking bang some fucking... it's going to be awesome, man! Superheroes fighting against Darkseid! I never thought I'd ever see Darkseid on a screen. I can't believe it! Yes! I am going. I'm going to enjoy it, and so are you. Get ready. Yes. So I get all hyped up. Aren't you excited? God, I can feel it. I'm very excited for this day. This is like fan prom, you know? Fan prom, that's what it is. It's like, I wonder if they're going to play I don't know what they're going to play, but I'm sure it's going to be loud, and it's going to shred. It's going to be great. I'm excited. I'm very excited. And then, tomorrow night, we've got Falcon and Winter Soldier. How cool is that? I have to say that perhaps I'm losing my mind. Every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And I might not be here tomorrow to remind you of that. So, tonight. Yes.